Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again. Now it's time for episode 135 of the day, which, I'm going to do like two more Yep Rock Records album reviews, to like the end of the year, and stuff like that. Also, I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas Eve, because I'm doing this on Christmas Eve, and, hope all of you are having a good holiday season so far, probably going to see family, and maybe, and whatnot, and stuff like that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Yep Rock Records for sending me that really nice card, telling me have a rockin' holiday season, due to all the support that they've given me. And also, this is the first full year that I've been an honorary completist, that I've been an honorary completist for. Meaning I have like every new release that they've put out this year on CD, or also there are a couple of 7-inches that I got and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to thank them again for all that support and stuff like that, since I'm, reviewing, a couple of Yep Rock albums till like the end of the year, pretty much, like the one I'm talking about today, which I'm here to talk about sort of a new sort of like pseudonym or project, something like that, whatever you want to call it. It's maybe a little confusing there, but it is sort of a new project of, frontman of Fountains of Wayne and singer-songwriter and guitarist Chris Collingwood, which I've actually never really listened to Fountains of Wayne before, but, sometime I'll have to give them a listen sometime. But I'm here talking about, like, sort of this new project that Chris Collingwood has called Look Park, which is also the name, and I'm going to be, as you can see, I'm reviewing the album of the same name, so pretty much the entire project as a whole is called Look Park. It's like technically like a solo record from Chris Collingwood, pretty much. This came out in July. July wasn't a very fruitful month for music, surprisingly, but at the same time, it makes sense. I mean, June was very fruitful, I'll tell you that. Lots of great albums dropped in that month, just like May. So it makes sense that things kind of cooled down a little bit in July, even though there were a few releases in that month that I thought were great. For example, this album is definitely one of them, for sure. It's been overall a very consistent year for Yep Rock. I mean, there hasn't really been an album that they've dropped this year that I didn't like, really. Anyway, this is what the packaging looks like. There's 10 songs on it. Yeah, it's over like 37 minutes long. There's the disc there and the track list too. And then here's the booklet, which has the lyrics in it. Yeah, photo of Chris there. And liner notes. And this is produced by a legendary producer by the name of Mitchell Froom, who's worked with many, legendary musicians like Elvis Costello, and he also plays keyboards throughout the entire record. Most notably, piano, and definitely Mellotron for sure. Also a couple other musicians accompanying him on this thing are Davey Faragher on bass, who used to be the bassist for Cracker, and has played with a few other artists since then as like a session musician and whatnot. And Michael Urbano, and he's also played with people like Chuck Prophet and stuff like that, as did Michael Urbano, who played drums throughout the entire record, who has played with Cracker as well as Chuck Prophet, all those people. So, and all those people, stuff like that. So yeah, there's some pretty legendary musicians on here. And also there is some background vocals from Mike Viola on this thing too. Uh, so yeah, that's what the packaging for the self-titled Look Park album looks like. Now, I've heard a few people say that this record, it is from the Fountains of Wayne frontman, but it doesn't necessarily sound like Fountains of Wayne or anything like that. And even though I never, heard Fountains of Wayne, I could see how people could say that. I mean, this album is has kind of a vintage sound to it, but yet the production on here still sounds very fresh, and so it's really fresh, and it sounds organic enough that it could only be recorded today. But it takes a lot of inspiration from like the 60s and the 70s of pop rock and psychedelic rock and stuff like that, as well. Well, as psychedelic rock too. I mean, I heard that one big inspiration on this album was the Moody Blues, which obviously is a band which obviously is a legendary band from that time that obviously Chris and the producer Mitchell Froom both share a love for, pretty much. So you'll hear acoustic guitars, electric guitars, as well as very melodic bass guitar, as well as drums, percussion, and piano, as well as very heavy use of mellotron. In fact, there's mellotron on nearly every song on this album over here. Now, I know it sounds like just them putting it there just to put it there, but really the mellotrons really add so much to the album that it would have lacked otherwise. And also, Mitchell Froom really does show off his skills with the instrument, and really showing off the diversity of all the different sounds you could play with it. I mean, there's mellotron strings, mellotron flutes, as there's even mellotron horns. There's even a moment where there's mellotron strings, mellotron flutes, mellotron woodwinds, mellotron horns, mellotron vibes. There's even a mellotron mandolin. There's even a moment on here where a mellotron seems to be imitating like a xylophone or a marimba or something like that on here even. So yeah, definitely a great album. So for all you mellotron fans out there, this is the album for you. But then there's also elements of, there's some Rillitz or electric piano, organ in there. Organ pops up in here too. There too, as well as 12-string guitar and baritone guitars and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely a very kind of well-produced, very colorful, sort of melodic album if you look at the instrumentation. So I like how there isn't a whole lot of darkness to it, like a lot of indie rock albums seem to have. Like indie rock musicians kind of feel the need to be super brooding and stuff like that, but here it's just about kind of having fun and just appreciating melody a little bit. Chris Collingwood's vocals on here are very passionate and definitely do kind of engage you enough to want to listen to his lyrics. And the lyrics on here I think are great. Great, on here, it's certainly, the lyrics on here, there is an obvious, imagery is definitely one thing that definitely, is a very prominent thing on the lyrics here. But then there are also lyrics on here that I think also do kind of talk about, the problems in today's modern society a little bit, and stuff like that. But yeah, it isn't a very super dark album, pretty much. There are definitely some really nice ballads on this thing, like the song "Minor is the Lonely Key," which is one of the sadder songs on here, which sort of would sort of makes references to like soldiers at war, pretty much, sort of who are dealing with such heartbreaking things in their life, and of course the protagonist in the song gets told by one of them that minor is the lonely key, and when you sing it, mind the sharps. And when you sing that key, mind the sharps and sing the melody alone, because they can't hear the tune and they don't know the words to the song. And, it's just a really, gorgeous ballad with beautiful mellotron and electric guitar stylings on it. Stylings on there. And this is the one song where the mellotron kind of, imitates a vibraphone a little bit. And it sounds really nice on there. It's like the combination of the mellotron, guitars, bass, drums, and percussion on here sounds really nice, I think. Anyway, on to some of the catchier tracks on the album, like the song The Stars of New York, which just has one of the best hooks on the entire album, and, it sort of seems to talk about, and, Stars of New York, it sort of seems to reference, today's sort of seems to reference, New York being a city full of, like, kind of, full-blown, celebrities and stuff like that. But yet it kind of, I think, he kind of uses it as a metaphor a little bit, to sort of, describe, even though I think he's kind of using it as a metaphor here, so yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of metaphors here, here, as well as kind of, literal sort of subjects going on here, too. On here, like, this song has just a great hook on it, and also the great hook on there, like the piano and the glockenspiel and the mellotron all blend together really nicely on this track, I find, as well. And also the opening track on this album, Shout Part 1, is definitely a, nice little, cathartic opener for the album. Opener which featured some really nice group vocals in this song features some really nice group vocals like in the middle of it, I think, or something like that. And it's on the second half of the song, a lot of the lines seem to kind of reference, kind of, modern society, but kind of uses it as like a metaphor a little bit, on quotes like, is this your religion? What keeps you up nights? Who writes the paychecks? Who games the markets? Who owns the cables? Who owns the papers? Who spanned the oceans, carved out the acres? Hers. And, the song is really nice with, it's with the very prominent mellotron on there, and I like kind of the, and also I like kind of the rhythmic sort of, organ or keyboard boards, I like sort of the vibrating organ or keyboard that goes on and adds some nice sort of rhythm to the song. To the song, and it sort of opens up the album on the best note because it does a good job of showing you sort of the direction that the album is gonna take. Sort of the direction that the album is gonna go in, pretty much. It's kind of nostalgic, but at the same time kind of celebrates that kind of music without rehashing it, and also focusing very solely on very quality songwriting too. Also want to point out the song Breezy. Definitely one of the most sort of easygoing, sort of carefree moments on the entire album, but yet it's not in the way that's like super cheesy or trying to force you to be happy or anything like that. It's a really sort of it's got a nice catchy little hook on there, and the electric piano, and the piano and the roulets are on there. It sounds really nice, and they definitely, as well as the really nice mellotron melody that goes on this one too. And also its lyrics, it's definitely, the song sort of shows how the album is also kind of a good summer album, pretty much. In fact, sometimes when I listen to this album, I wish it was like, it makes me wish it were sunny outside instead of just cold and rainy like it is right now in winter. Sure, sure, and also if you look at, yeah, and also its lyrics seem to sort of, paint, this kind of, summary picture on there that I think is really nice. With lyrics like, my girl wants to play on the beaches all day, strip down and lie in the sun. You can run away for a week of your pay, get up for nothing and no one. But probably my favorite song in this entire project would have to be the song Aeroplane. Some of my favorite lyrics on this track, there's definitely some very, it definitely does sound, the lyrics on here do sound really poetic and stuff like that. Really poetic and stuff like that. And, I like sort of the metaphors, sort of referencing airplanes and, airplanes and, stuff like that. So it, does kind of, but, it does have lyrics on here that sort of, make it, the imagery of airplanes and some of the stuff sound kind of vivid, but at the same time there's a certain kind of optimism and catharsis to it that I really like a lot, and that guitar, and it just has that lovely guitar, hook on there that I really like a lot, that really does, does sound nice on there with the piano and the mellotron and the organ on the song, as well as the bass, the drums, and the shakers on here. Here. Here, there's the song, You Can Come Around If You Want To, even though that song probably is my least favorite track over here, because, the song, the lyrics, aren't necessarily as memorable or anything like that. And also the vocal harmonies in the bridge. Well, Mike Viola's vocal harmonies do work for a bulk of this album. I feel here they do sound a tad bit grating, in my opinion, when he really comes in on the bridge a little bit, when he hits the high notes a little bit. High notes, even though it does feature a really nice kind of, a mellotron, dulcimer, mandolin solo, whatever you want to call it. Call it on here. But, following that, I do really like the song I'm Gonna Haunt This Place, which, is kind of, is one of the more eerie cuts on the album. And, some people may think that this album kind of has a lack of edge a little bit, which makes sense, because, this song may have the bite that some people may wish was there. And, yeah, and but still, the fact that this album doesn't really have a whole lot of edge is definitely okay with me, because, this album certainly doesn't need to. But it is kind of refreshing to see that on the song here, as he references old friends he murdered in song, as well as a brass sailor figurine who sings of the sea, how they once come in on the waves. And I like kind of the spooky organs on the song and the acoustic guitar, or the bass, and the drums, and the kind of eerie drums and tambourine that kind of, sound like a marching band a little bit, as well as, this is the one song where I mentioned where the mellotron seems to be imitating a xylophone or a marimba, something like that. And I like the real kind of ear-grabbing backing vocal melody provided by Mike Viola, like at one point in the song. Ba 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 da, on there. There, which I think, fits the song really nicely. Strangely. Like Mike Viola does a good job with, his vocal harmonies on here. And I'm going to highlight the last few songs in the album before I head out, which I'm going to get into the song Crash That Piano, which is another one of my favorites here. This song, and I like and I like kind of the metaphors used in this song too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of, this is a very symbolic record, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, symbolism is definitely a very big part of music, and as long as you use it with a purpose, which I feel Chris Collingwood does that here throughout this album, you're gonna have a pretty poetic record, I think. I like the metaphors in here, like the chorus, like, major sevenths may enchant and charm when the cats play fast and loose, wander off the route to somewhere far away. You're gonna crash that piano if you don't play it straight. Like sort of mentioning how, if you don't, control your life. I think maybe mentioning how if you don't control yourself the right way, it's all just gonna crash and burn, pretty much, And I like that, along with, it has an almost kind of Latin feel with the acoustic guitars, with the acoustic guitars and the drums on here, the bass and the drums on here. But then it's also got really nice splashes of piano and mellotron that really color the song very nicely. It's definitely one of, it's definitely more like kind of one of the ballads here. So yeah, really like that song. As well as Save Yourself, probably my second favorite song here, which has some of my favorite lyrics here. And here which sort of mentions, society sort of, trying to stay in line a little bit, like, mentioning, all these, like, young kids who seem to, be in a line for all the friends they got, and you can tell by the clothes they wear, pretty much, trying to fit in and stuff like that. Yeah, and then also mentioning how there's some news reporters out there that has the day all wrong because the locals only sense the time. Sense the time. Like, and saying how I might have been in the clear since I landed here, there's no escaping but on wings, or in a tunnel of mud, a hole in my own head, and also mentioning, sort of the message of the song is like, save yourself because you can't save the ones you love, but, this song also has, I like kind of the, I like kind of the jagged baritone guitar that, occurs like in the chorus of the song, as well as the mellotrons paint a really nice atmosphere, just like they do for most of the album. And it's, got kind of a nice folky feel with the acoustic guitars. And then it closes with Get On Home, which And then the album closes with the song Get On Home, which is another song that, is more kind of like a heartbreaking song if you look at the lyrics, but I do really like the acoustic guitars, the electric piano, the bass, the drums, and I do really like that that jangly guitar riff that kind of sounds that sounds very REM inspired, but not in a bad way necessarily, but more kind of celebrating that. So yeah, overall I think this is a really solid album. It's definitely a very catchy, melodic, and poetic psychedelic pop rock record. With some great tunes on it. Probably one of my favorite pop rock albums that's come out this year. Even though it's technically indie rock as well, I think some people may call it. Is Fountains of Wayne, technically an indie band and stuff like that. But yeah, like the musicians did a great job here with their parts and stuff like that, really showing off what they do best, and also some fantastic lyrics on this thing, as well as hooks that are definitely bound to get stuck in your head and put a smile on your face even. So yeah, it's definitely a very fun kind of summery album. It's not a very brooding record, but it certainly doesn't need to be. So yeah, I'm feeling an 8 out of. So I'm definitely going with an 8 out of 10 on this self-titled album from Look Park, the new project of Chris Collingwood, released by really nice folks at Yep Rock. And yeah, that's my review for this album. I'll see you for episode 136. So, and have a Merry Christmas, everybody.